Okay, hello. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if everything's coming through fine, if the quality's fine, all of that stuff, because I had some issues with frame rates and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, let me know in the chat if everything's coming through. Basically, I thought that I'd be able to stream with 60 FPS because my internet speed's pretty good right now, but yeah, it turns out that I couldn't, so I switched back down to 30 FPS. Hopefully, we're okay. But let me know. Let me know in the chat if anything's sort of really bugging out and stuff. And I do not know if I even have the right chat open, so I should probably double check, because you may be chatting and I just might not have a clue. Alright, let's close you. And let's pop out the chat. So the sync's a bit out, you say? For some reason, I'm not getting any chats through. I don't know if that's because you're not talking or because my stream quality is really bad. On OBS, it says that it's green with 30 frames per second, but yeah, maybe it's not. Let me know while I make a drink, because if we don't get some smooth streams, then we won't be streaming. So yeah, this could be an issue. A lovely sound. Right. See, I don't know whether to get started or not, because I don't know about the stream. Is there any way I can check what's going on? Because no one's talking. So my stream health apparently is red, which isn't good. But I think that just means that it's buffering. I don't know. Apparently there's a few people watching. If you guys could let me know in the chat if you can hear me fine, if things are kind of smooth. Don't know how to tell that. I honestly don't know. YouTube's telling me one thing, OBS is telling me another thing. Things seem fine, but no one's chatting, which is, I guess, a bad sign. I don't know. I don't know. What's the situation? Do I do a speed test? Is that the thing I do? Yeah, I have good internet speed. Maybe my laptop's just being a bit of a pleb. Maybe if I quit a few things. What can I quit here? Can we quit you? Alright. Someone speak in the chat. Someone let me know that the stream is okay. Because I don't know if the stream's okay. I don't know if people are hearing me. Can you hear me? Maybe the people can't hear me. Is video okay? Is should I just keep running through things over and over again until I get a response? I don't know if the chat is weird. Okay. So, Zoe, does things seem smooth for you? Like, you can hear me fine? There's probably a bit of delay from when I speak to when it comes out, but should be smooth. Okay, well that's one. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna assume that that's the same for everyone, right? And also my chat seems to be working. So yeah, cool. Guys just aren't very talkative this evening. I have a new scene ready and set up, which is for my iPad, which allows me to use my Apple Pencil to draw some things. Okay, cool. So everything seems to be fine. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna assume everything's fine. But if anyone else is having some issues hearing me, or there's some horrible buffering or something, then let me know. But for now, we're gonna just go ahead and we're gonna get on with things. And I hope that people start talking, because that makes my job easier and I don't have to say loads of stuff to keep the stream good. So the plan is today to make something that's going to be fun, hopefully going to be quite a simple thing to make. Obviously the last two streams I made my personal site, which was fun. And then I've been thinking about how to continue this, and I think it's unrealistic to kind of think of small ideas for each stream, because I'm eventually going to run out of ideas. There's only so many ideas in my head. So I'm sort of working on maybe a bigger idea, which will involve you guys more, which will be open source and will involve you guys contributing and opening PRs and stuff if you feel like you want to do that. And I think it would be pretty cool to have everyone make something which will be somewhat around this community, developers in general. But that is not for today's stream. Today's stream is just something while I flush out that idea that Bobby suggested. And by the way, guys, feel free in the comments and stuff after this video to write any suggestions, and if there's a good one or if I think it's cool, then maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't, maybe I'll ignore them all, but there's only one way to find out. So yeah, anyway, the idea that I have, and I'm going to switch to my screen, is so this obviously isn't the idea, because this is my personal site that we made in the last stream. But the idea is called Whisper, right? Now bear with me. So let's get this to a normal window size, shall we? And right, so as you can see, I'm running off very much the same theme as my personal site, right? don't want to have to do any other designing, and it's kind of unfair for Bobby if I just be like, hey, I'm doing another stream, so here's another product you have to design. No one, no one wants that. So keeping very much the same theme of things, I've got this kind of gradient background, which will be animating in the same way. But the idea here is basically you type out a message, and this can be anything that you want, and then when you type out your message and you publish it, you basically get like a custom link, and then the first person that comes to that link after you've the first person that comes to that link, right, will see the message, and then we'll start a timer for about 60 seconds. That message from then onwards will only exist for those 60 seconds, and during that 60 seconds it will gradually be fading out to 0 opacity. At 0 it will be unrendered from the DOM and stuff. So it's just kind of like a fun little thing that you can kind of put out there, and sort of someone will see for 6 seconds, maybe 3 people will see for 6 seconds, but who knows. And my plan is to do this with Redis because it's just a super simple, doesn't need to be anything crazy with like a user database or anything crazy like that, so just like a Redis store of some strings will be fine. I do have like another extension idea for this, which is when the whisper sort of disappears, anybody sort of on the whisper still will have sort of 60 seconds to kind of re-whisper it, where they can type something by themselves, and then when the next person comes to that URL, it's like a different message from someone else, but you don't know who said what or what was said by who. I don't know if I'm going to go down that route. It seems quite fun. It seems quite like a nice way to keep the sort of URL active, but otherwise I'll probably just have like a cron job which goes through and deletes everything that's past 60 seconds, basically. So yeah, that's the idea. This is the sort of mock-up that I have. It's going to be really simple, and I have a website for it. Somewhere. Where is my... Here we go. So if we go to whisper.li, this is the website I have, and obviously as it's very much a similar setup to my personal site, which I've already done before, I literally just copied and pasted all of that stuff over. So obviously we haven't added in the colors or anything, but yeah, I think that part will be easy to just run through and do the front end. We'll probably start doing that soon. And yeah, it's cool. Let me show you guys my new sort of scene, which is this one here, right? So now I have like my tablet or my iPad, and I can sort of like write stuff on here, and hopefully it will make it easier for me to be able to explain some things as if I have my whiteboard, which is like here, but you guys can't see that, on a tablet. Now my handwriting isn't the best. I also can't spell for shit. So don't expect anything to be pretty on this screen. This is just gonna be like sketching out basically what I'm saying, so it's easier for you guys to maybe visualize my head a bit. Just an idea I had. Might use it, might not use it. I guess if you guys want me to explain something further, I might switch to this sort of scene, but otherwise we'll go back to this one. Alright, so basically, in fact, let's do this. Let's explain the idea that I have, and how it's going to work. Let's move this, whoop, so you can hear me fine over here. Right. Ooh, am I way too loud now? Maybe. Did I just pierce all you guys' ears? Alright, I'll turn myself down a little bit, and on here. Ooh. Right, so basically what we're gonna have is Dan messaging me. Probably should turn these notifications off. Right, so here we go. we're going to have basically when people view the site, they're going to come in. And then what we want to do is we want to store in local storage like a random string. And then this string is basically going to be like their authentication token. Not really an authentication token. It's basically just going to identify them. And we're only going to use local storage. We're not going to store anything crazy or cookies or sessions or anything like that. It's literally just going to be like, so we know who makes the whisper and then whether they're viewing it. So we don't want to start the timeout basically if they're the ones viewing it or not. We only want to start the timeout of 60 seconds when it's someone else. So basically when you have this, we can then be like, okay, so now you can write a whisper. And then once you write a whisper, you get given a URL, which is fine. We kind of, this is kind of usual stuff. So what happens now is basically when someone visits this URL, and I guess you could just share it on like Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Like, I don't know. It's literally just a fun project that, who knows, might be quite fun to share around. But when you get to this point, we're basically going to then do like a check to see if expires is set. And then if it's not set, obviously you're the first one. So you would go ahead and you'd like set it to 60 seconds in future. All right, and then we can use this, we'd then basically return it back once we set it. And then basically once we have this and we've got it loaded locally, we can use this 60 seconds from the sort of time to basically work out the opacity that the text should be, right? Because it will be sort of like 60 divided by 100, like times 100 will be the percentage of the opacity, depending, and then this will be the sort of 60 seconds that's counting down, and we can have like a set interval. And like, yes, I know that this is right on my face, but you know, I should have thought about this stuff better. So yeah, we can use like a set interval to update this every 1 second, so that this should be updating the opacity in real time. And then basically when it gets to 0, we're gonna not render it. So 0 equals no render. Now the idea that I had to be able to re-whisper things would basically allow you to create this sort of loop here. Oh, that's not really an hour. So basically it would allow you to have like a sort of cycle through, and then instead of it just sort of dying at this point, it would be able to be refreshed and the expires get reset, and then all of this stuff applies the same thing. So yeah, that's basically my logic behind it. Whether it's going to be that simple, I have no idea. I haven't done anything yet. So that's always a good start. But hope everyone is good. Hope everyone is enjoying things so far. I also am pretty excited because I haven't played with Redis for a very long time. And let me show you what I think is how it's going to work, basically. So if I open up this Redis sort of client, so I can sort of see my Redis stuff when it eventually opens. Minimize this stuff. Let's get the doc down here. Let's bring you over here. Rightio. We don't need 2 of them open. I don't know why my command space isn't working, but okie dokie. Let's start up a Redis server just so that we can connect locally. And then let's just go to the Redis terminal so we can just sort of test out the way we want to do things. So basically how I'm thinking about doing it is I'm going to have like a set of keys, and the key is going to be like a set. So we can do like set add And then, for example, the keys will be the sort of randomly generated string which you get assigned to you when you sort of load the site for the first time and stored in local storage. And this could be anything. I'm just going to be like hello, but like there may be another one and another one, and basically like this. So this is going to add these keys. So if we go into refresh here and go into content, we can see that this says hello, hello one. And this is actually the name of the key. So in fact, we should have done it like, this is what I mean by it says it's been a while since I played with Redis. So it would be called keys, right? And then we say like hello, hello one, hello two. And then we've added 3, which is correct. And then we can see that we've got this keys here, and it's equal to this. Now, the cool thing is about this is that say if we have a string, so if we do like set hello one to equal to like a string, so this is basically going to be the key in the database, and it will be equal to these random generated strings that we have, and we'll be like, this is my whisper. And then basically we can see that we have this hello one, which is the key, and then it's equal to the content. This is really like simple because it's not going to be like, I'm not going to worry about too much about encryption. I don't expect people to be sharing stuff that like super secret, and even if they do, it's not like we're storing anything that's personal to the user, so it's going to be hard to find out who did that. But the cool thing is about this is you can use a function called set random rand member. I think it's this, set rand member. And then if you do the set that you want to basically call this on, then it's basically going to give you a random item from this set. So if we have like a set of all of these keys, then we're going to be able to just randomly get basically one of these items, which is going to be equal to the whisper. So we could have like a random sort of / random endpoint, which can get sort of like a random whisper, which would be cool. Or we can have things by the endpoint of the key, and then we can get that specific whisper. But first things first, I think I've spoke about it a lot now. So we're going to get into coding. By the way, I've camera doing the thing. If this ever happens, scream at me, because it basically just means I figured out why it does it. It just that my memory card isn't good enough so that it can't stream and record at the same time. But it just needs sort of pressing every now and again to wake it up. And by the way, I've gone with a light theme here. I don't know if you like it. Like normally I'm a dark theme person, but I don't know. I saw it as I was just scrolling through my themes, and I was like, yep, I like this. So we basically have this super simple site, which you saw. Let's see, this one here. So we have this obviously running locally. If we just go to cd whisper, and then we can do yarn dev to run the local version of it. And by the way, I've left in the description of this video the like GitHub repo, which will be what I'm committing things to. It's open and it's public, so feel free to have a look. Feel free to make a PR. Feel free to do anything you want. Yeah, pretty fun. Right, so this is now loaded. I think it just needs me to access it to sort of start compiling, right? I don't know. My computer always sort of goes super slow when I start streaming. I don't really know why. I've got like a pretty decent computer and a pretty good setup, so it kind of, I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, I didn't mean to close that. I did not mean to close that. All over again. Okay, things are going a little bit faster now. Right, we can just minimize this. We don't really need that anymore. So the first thing I'm going to do to make this basically look pretty much how we want it is just change the colors, because that's really all I did. I mean, I made these shapes a bit different, but like looking at it, I feel like you're not really gonna notice that. So I'm just gonna change the background color to this color, which I think I put in here. Background color to this color, and then we need to select these sort of weird blobby shapes. And then I think I've called them like it's something a bit like called them by color, which is annoying, like yellow blob and pink blob. I think it would be better if we have like primary and secondary. So I'm going to call this primary blob. And this color is going to change to this blue. Yeah, I know. Coding on a light theme is weird, right? I can change it. If you want me to change it, I'll change it. But like, I don't know. I saw it. I accidentally stumbled across it. And then I was kind of like, yeah, I can go light if I want. But maybe I can't. So basically we've changed that to a blue, and then we changed this to a lighter blue, this pink blob, which we're going to change to secondary blob. And then we changed this to this light blue color. Don't know why I didn't copy the whole hex there, but that's definitely not the color. Right, so now that we changed that, basically what we need to do is in this sort of layout where we define these blobs, I'm also going to basically change yellow to primary and pink to secondary, and then obviously we need to change this to primary and secondary. Yeah, Next.js is really cool. And the version 9.4, which was just released, does some really cool things, which kind of puts it in the same sort of league as sort of Gatsby was doing, which was some really interesting stuff when it comes to rendering out the page and sort of how fast it can do that. Also has like a bunch of other stuff, but like, yeah, Next.js is really cool, especially if you already know React, because it just kind of does all the hard stuff for you. Allows you to really simply set it up, and with their sort of servers, it's just like one command and it's online and it's free, and it's just, this is easy. So yeah, no, Next.js is really cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yes, I know it doesn't exist because we changed the name. So we need to change this in here, and then we need to change it also in here to primary blob, not secondary. This one is secondary. Oh, do you know what's kind of annoying? Is these animation names, so I'm gonna do like this, because that makes me feel better. Secondary move. Okay, now these errors should go away because this actually exists and we're using them here. But like, sometimes it takes a while, especially when I'm streaming and my computer's already going really slow to update these red lines. But hopefully, there we go. This is basically, I mean, it leaves a bit open here, but it kind of does the right sort of effect, right? You get it. I'm not sort of doing a one-for-one, that's for sure. I'm just sort of making the concept. So next we want this sort of input, and I think to kind of like set the idea of this kind of fading away again, I want it to kind of fade in really slowly. So like you come to the site and then sort of like it's kind of like coming at you, like it's whispering at you and slowly getting louder and louder. This is what I want. So I'm gonna sort of make a component here, new folder. I'm going to call it Whisper, because basically all of the logic's going to live inside this probably. And I'm going to have a new file, and I'm going to call index.tsx. And then all of the usual stuff up here. And then we do const whisper, which is a react.fc functional component. We won't pass in any props right now, and then we will just return, for now, just an input with maybe a placeholder of hello, so we know where it exists. And then we'll export this component. So export default, which will be the whisper. Done. All right, so now on our pages, we can go, and by the way, I left the API folder here because when you sort of install Next.js, they give you this API folder which runs with serverless functions. And it's really neat. So we can sort of go to this. I think it's API hello, and it just prints out like a JSON response. So we're going to definitely use this to basically be storing our Redis stuff and collecting our Redis stuff. So yeah, that's why that's there. But let's import this sort of whisper component, and if VS Code was keeping up, it would automatically have imported that, but it didn't. Components, whisper. And this does exist, right? This is just, we'll see if it exists by just seeing if it exists. Okay, so we have this input, woo, and we can type in it. Great, that's basically what we want, but it obviously needs to look like this. So let's have a look. This has got a font size of 42 pixels, which is big. So what we can do is, instead of just having this a normal input, we can now make it a styled input with styled components. So let's just type in styles.ts. Right. Do you know of any package that takes care of cross-browser CSS properties, the WebKit and the O, without mentioning it explicitly? Yeah. So like styled components, which is what I'm using now, will automatically put that stuff in. But I'd question whether you need that stuff nowadays. A lot of these properties that used to need that, sort of like border radius and all of the sort of CSS properties, you won't need anymore because all sort of modern browsers will support them. But yeah, I'm pretty sure most. I'm not 100% sure, but I'd like to say that even the Next.js sort of default sort of styles with style.js will add them in, but not 100%, but definitely any sort of JS styles sort of package will probably do it. And yeah, I'd just question if it's needed. I'd look up sort of like, I think there's a website which is like, is it supported or something? It's called something like that, and you can put in the property, and you can sort of see the versions of Chrome and Safari that where this feature became sort of available without you having to use the sort of WebKit and stuff. So I'd look at that. But yeah, I haven't had to type them things out for a long time. So I'm assuming styled components does it for me. If not, then maybe I'm missing the trick, really. But yeah, I haven't coded web in a very long time, but I'd think by now that this stuff is kind of not really needed too much. That's just my 2 cents on it though. So here we need to import styled from styled components, and we're going to say, so we want this input to be styled, so we do export const styled input, and it's going to be styled.input. Right, now that we have this, we can obviously just import this from here. Import this. Why is that not spacing? From styles. Do you know how to get the animojis as images? Yeah, I do, and it's a pain in the ass. It really is. So basically, if you go to your phone and you go to sort of like messages, and then like the little apps that are above the messages bar, there's one for like Animoji stickers, which you can sort of send to yourself, and they're transparent images, but they're not very good quality at all. What's actually better to do is basically if you go to the camera through the messages app, so not on the camera app, you have that sort of like star symbol in the bottom left hand corner. You can apply an emoji to your face, and then in real time basically, and then sort of take a picture which has the same quality as the sort of front facing camera would. So it's sort of like really high res, and then you can use like a photo editing software to literally just select around it and delete. That's what I did for my personal website, and honestly, I couldn't find a better way to do it with such high quality Animoji images, because if I just sort of made a video and then sent it to myself, and yeah, it was on a black background or white background, which made it a lot easier to cut out the background, but it was lower quality, so it depends what you're up to. Elliot Jordan, long time. This guy I went to school with. Keep up the good work. See you around and good night. See you later, man. Thank you for tuning in. So yeah, basically all we've done here, yeah, right. It's a ton of effort, and I can't imagine, like, I just don't know why someone hasn't made an app. I don't know if it's possible. That is basically just like a studio for Animoji where you can take these transparent images and have them high quality already, because if you can apply it in the camera app on messages, you can probably apply it in the camera app on another app, right? I don't know. But if anyone can do it, that'd be a great app, because I'd use it a lot, because Animojis are cool and everyone's sort of moving towards using them for their profile picture. I've sort of seen more and more people do it all the time. So yeah, I haven't added any styles, so this is going to be exactly the same and it's going to be really boring. But it basically just proves that this is still an input. Good job. Right, so obviously we don't want a background color, so we can just do background color transparent, which will remove this background color. No background color. We don't want a border, so we just do border none, which will remove the border. And for now, we don't want an outline. And yeah, I know for like accessibility that outlines are super important, especially for people who are visually impaired, or people who use like screen readers. It helps. I think less screen readers, but like it's kind of important to know what you're focused on, because it's not very clear with this like typing input here. So maybe we'll add some outlines, just some custom ones which look a bit nicer than that horrible like bluey blur that is on Mac. So now that we've done that, font size, and I can't even remember, it was so long ago. 42 pixels. Alright, so this is gonna be bigger now, and then we'll say color, we want it to be white. Now I forget how to do the, what's it called, placeholder color in CSS. So let's look it up. And blah 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 blah. You basically do this. Okay, so let's see if we can get away with not doing this. Oh, we definitely will, right? Because yeah, I'm not really gonna support Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge. Nah, let's just not do that. So it's like : placeholder. So I can apply that directly in here, like this. Oh, don't need to do 4. And then hopefully I can just do color and then do a white with like an opacity. I'm gonna say 0.6. And then there we go. This hello is now like a bit more on the theme of things. Next thing we want to do is center it. Pretty easy. We can just do text align center, add it in, centered. Right, now we need to center in the page. I kind of forget how I laid out this page because I did it like 2 streams ago now. So when this eventually loads, okay, so we have like this header. Cool, we don't really care too much about that. So we have this, which is wrapping the content, and this is a flex column. Okay, so if we wrap this in sort of like a div, so if we kind of just have another style here, which is export const styled, or maybe we just call it like input container, like this, and make it style.div. We can have this be like a flex1, like this, which will push it to be the whole height of the content that's remaining on the screen. And then we can do, I never remember if it's line items or justify content, but it needs to be a display flex. And we'll do a line items. I think this is right. And center. All right, so now if we rep this in this input container, and like so, and then also import this input container from styles like this, and then we should find that this is centered, but the issue here is that it's not taking up the whole width, it seems. Let's just double check to confirm that that is the case. Centering a div inside another div, yes. That's exactly how I like to do it. So yeah, basically, because this div, which is contained, so the input container that we just made is a flexbox, and the default flexbox direction is row, not column. It's basically not taking up the full width by default because we haven't told it to. So I think if we just do flex1 here, it will take up the whole width, and this hello will be back to centered, right? So you notice that now this hello isn't vertically centered because this is kind of pushing it down, right? Well, here I kind of have always have something at the bottom here, just so that when I put something here, it kind of pushes this back up into the center, because really it's kind of like something here and something here, so this isn't in the center currently, this is at the bottom, but then if we add something at the bottom, then it's in the center of these two. So yeah, that's how I like to visualize it. So obviously I can type here. This is kind of expected, kind of what inputs do. So now I'm going to just add it in this sort of like footer, which is just a little thing that says whispers last 60 seconds, because I just think it should be there. Or I could have the publish button. I kind of put this here because I was like, do I want to have this, and then when you start typing it switches out, like sort of slides down, and this slides up to kind of pop in your head. But now I'm kind of looking at it and I'm kind of being like, I had some troubles with the stream, so running a bit behind, might just have a button and then it's just disabled if there's nothing in here. But yeah, maybe, I don't know. But the annoying thing is, right, so this button needs to be here, right? If we want this to kind of be, this kind of works in sections, we can't have it within the whisper. But I'm going to try something, because maybe we can. I don't know. So I'm going to say if we have this input container, it's already got the display flex, so we already know it takes up the whole height. If we change the flex direction to column, so that this flex now takes up the whole height, I'm not sure if it still takes up the whole width or not. We'll see. I'm just going to refresh. I know it has fast refresh, but I just never trust it. I just don't know if it's refreshed or not. So I normally have like my terminal open on this window, but I've got like chat and everything, so I can't see if it actually compiled. I just assume it has. So yeah, this input isn't full width, but this is actually kind of fine because we don't want it to be full width, right? If you write like a really big message, we don't want it to kind of hit the sides. I wonder if it auto grows, like if we do this. No, okay, it goes off. But we could make this into a text area instead of a text input, which Is it as simple as doing that? Yeah, it looks like it, but this means that it drops down a line instead of cuts off, which is a bit nicer. But the only thing here is what happened is this is no longer in the center because this is taking up the whole height. That's fine. That's expected. Just thinking. We would have to kind of like auto grow this with like JavaScript, but we can definitely do that. There's probably like 1,000 React components that are already out there, which already does that for me. The only thing that I don't like is this little annoying little dragging icon down here. Don't know if you can see that, but we can get rid of this. We just have resize none. So we basically say no resize, and then this goes away. So the fact that this is the full height isn't ideal, because we don't want it. But if we take away this flex, it won't be in the center, right? Oh, it has a height? Huh? Where is it getting that height from? Is this like the default? Does it have a default? No, it doesn't. That's applied. Not Redux. That's so weird, right? Like, why is it got them styles applied to it? Maybe if I just say like height, like 60 pixels default, is that gonna help? It's overwritten by this. I don't know why. I don't know why this would have a height to it that's applied. Do I need to like cache refresh? Maybe it's coming from like a style components render issue. No. Oh yeah. Okay. There we go. That's fine. That's the right height. So we're just gonna keep it at 60, and I know that when we basically hit this edge, it's gonna scroll instead of sort of grow. But we'll just handle that in another video because we don't need to handle it now. Okay, so this is a little bit better, right? We have this div, which takes up the rest of the content, and we have this text area, right? What I don't want to do now is wrap too many things in divs, just divs over divs over divs, because then it gets annoying, right? Because it gets hard to read, but I do want to keep this component simple, and by simple I mean I want this button down here to be in the same component as this, because then I don't have to worry too much about sharing the state of this input field to sort of the parent view so that the button in the parent view can update to be disabled or not. I don't want to have to do that, so I'm basically just trying to find a workaround, and I think the only really one is to wrap it in another div. So I'm going to change this just to make it more readable to Whisper component container, and I'll change that in the styles too. But we will need another container, and this will be for the input, and it's basically going to do the same as this. I know it's not really nice to just copy and paste these styles. We don't need this flex direction, but yeah, it's just easier to have different names for these things. And I know I could import it as something else up here, but then I can't use it for this, and yeah. So yeah, again, a div inside a div. Great way. And there's probably so much better ways to do this. I forget all of the neat sort of all of the neat stuff that you can do with Flexbox, because it's just been so long that I know you can probably just like align self to the sensor probably, but yeah. So okay, so now we kind of have what we had before. So we have this header, and then we have a div which is the full height, and within that div we have this text area, which again is the full height, but the text is centered, right? The text area itself is centered, but the div that's wrapping it is taking up the full height. Now if we close this, is going to be exactly the same as before, where it's not 100% in the middle of the screen. But if I added something to be like maybe a whisper footer component, styled component, and this can just be like a div, and we'll just put in some text here being like footer here. Then we make this. Let's just give it no styles. See what that does. So see how it kind of bumped it up a little bit? This is now more in the center. Then if we maybe give this a padding bottom of like 40 pixels, the same as this header here, we should find that this now stays in the center of the screen, this hello. And we're not doing anything crazy with sort of positioned absolute to keep this on the bottom. Even if there's like not enough space to keep it to the bottom, this will automatically grow, and all of that stuff. We're just sort of using Flexbox and just, I think probably a fairly neat way to do it. I'd say it's a fairly neat way to do it. But now we're just going to sort of type in, or actually make this button component. So I'm going to make a button component because I'm not going to just sort of like hard code it. I could, because I think I only use it once, but what the heck, let's make a button component. A button component. How many times will I say that? Right, I'm just laying out all of the boring stuff. Right, so now this button's gonna need some props. So it will need content, but we could just use the children to do that. I think that probably would look nicer in the code. So we can have children as a prop, which is a React child, React node, one or the other. That will be required. Don't know why I didn't import that. There we go. And we'll probably want an on-click event, camera doing the thing. We'll probably want an on-click, on-press, on-click. This is web, on-click. And this is going to be a function which doesn't pass anything through, and it will just void. And then, I mean, we could have loads more. We could have sort of like theme and size to kind of like, if we had multiple buttons with different sizes and different colors, we could really expand this out. But like, I think this is probably going to be super simple. So then we'll pass in these button props as like the available props on this React functional component. And then basically we'll have these props available for us when we include these. So we'll have the on-click and we'll have the children. Okie dokie. And I think we can even set like defaults here. So if we didn't have an on-click, it would just default to an empty function. But I think children would be required, and then we can sort of make this not required and then have this default. Something like that, right? Right, we'll just see if this works. It might not work. We might have to remove that. So now we want some styles. So we'll import, we haven't made any of this yet, but we'll say styled button from styles. And then we'll go new file, styles.ts, import styled from styled components, and then export const styled button equals styled.button. Should we make it a button? Or should we make, yeah, we'll make it a button. I was thinking like input type button, but button works fine because you can just add the type of submit. to it, I think, to submit a form. Maybe. May have to play around a few options there. So right, let's just see if we can kind of just nail this button without sort of looking at it. I kind of like to play this game with myself sometimes. Just kind of look at this button and be like, what is everything this button needs? Try and code it out, and then just when I refresh the page, just hope it is perfect. So it has a border radius of 10 pixels. It has a height of 50 pixels. The width is going to be dynamic because it will be depending on this text here. And if I move this to be the sort of width of the text and then center it, I can get the sort of left and right is 34. So let's do that. And I mean, I could do that padding with the top as well. But I mean, the top can be a fixed sort of dimension, right? Because it's never going to go onto two lines, and so I can't see that being an issue. So 50 pixels, 10 pixels, height 50 pixels, border radius 50 pixels. Oh, 10 pixels, almost. Then we have this background color. I don't know if buttons have borders, but I assume they do, and they also probably have outlines. And again, we will have outlines on these buttons probably, but not for now. Now to center this text, I'm going to do it the easy way, and I'm just going to do text align center for horizontally even. And then for vertically, I can just turn this into a flexbox, right? And then I can just do align items center, and then can't forget about the padding. We don't need any padding on the top because we've set the height, and then 34 pixels, and then the color of it will be white. Font size next, so 20 pixels, and then we have a medium font weight. So font size is 20 pixels, and then font weight, I believe medium is 500. It might be 600 depending on the font, but let's go with 500. So is that going to make me a button? Is it going to make me a button? I don't know. I think so. I mean, it's not going to have any hover effects. And I think even buttons, they don't even have the pointer. So we could just do hover, cursor, pointer, and obviously we can change the background color and have like a transition, all of that fun stuff, but that's not what I'm looking for here. So now we can import this styled button here. And then the reason why this on-click is an optional one is because basically if we're having this button in a form, then we might have the type of submit, which means the on-click of this button would be submitting the form. So we don't want to prevent the default or anything. We want to kind of have the default, which is to submit the form, and then we prevent the default on the form to submit to the database or the backend for the Redis store. Saying that though, we probably need a type. And it will be string. And then I think the types are like button or input or something like this. So we could make this like optional, and then hopefully if I'm doing this right, then this should be fine. To do this, the default is button. Then all we need to do is we need to put in our children here, because this is basically what's going in between the component brackets. We need to pass in the on-click, and I'm guessing this is fine to just do this. It might fail because it's expecting the sort of button event here. I don't know what that prop is, but we'll see. And then we'll say type. And you notice how I've done on-click and type equals like on-click equals on-click and type equals type. We can just do something like this, which will avoid us having to type that out twice, because no one likes to type out the same stuff twice. Okay, so question is this why styles? It definitely exists, right? Come on, I want this to work first time. So let's just assume that it exists and it just hasn't caught up yet. Let's go into this whisper component that we have, and we want to have a button here. So we can just import the button, and we need to import it up here. Oh, not in there. Here. Import button from, I mean, we could just go back and into button, or we can use absolute paths and just do components button like this. And then we would say publish here and save. But this is bugging me because this still hasn't gone away. I'm going to ignore it and hope for the best. All right, let's see. Okay, so we have a publish button. It's the right color and right text, right? It kind of is it. Kind of is it. I mean, maybe it can be a bit sort of, what's the word? Thicker, font weight. Font weight, where are you? Maybe it's 600. If that even makes a difference there. I don't think it does. It also looks bigger than 50 pixels, right? Is that me? Or maybe, let's see. I don't think it is, but like, yeah, it's 50 pixels. But for some reason in my head, like this, okay, maybe it is the right size, maybe I'm just being silly. But yeah, we have a button and we have hello, woohoo. So now we have this, which is pretty much how this is going to work, right? So when you actually land on something like this, we're actually just going to pull this from the Redis store, and then we're just going to sort of set it the input value to be that, but then we can just set the input to be disabled instead, so that you can't edit it. Then we don't have to worry about making it an input if it's typable, or making it a div if it's not, and everything like that. We can just set the enabled state of the input to disabled or not. So next steps. Thinking of the best thing. Should drink more, because just should drink more. How's everyone finding this? Is it fun to watch? Is it boring? Do I need to do more? Let me know. Ugh. Do. Thank you, Dan, for mentioning me in a tweet. Okay, man, 4:40 is very, very early. Go to bed and get some sleep. I'll see you on the next stream, probably Sunday. I'm thinking about doing streams every Friday and every Sunday in the evenings, where I can have a few drinks and enjoy stuff like this. Right. Next thing to do. I'm going to go back to here, and I'm basically going to go... So, this is the first step, right? We haven't even done this bit yet, which is getting a random string and then storing it for the user in local storage, which is kind of like the first step to kind of how this is all going to come together. So we should probably do that. All right, I'm going to use a hook for this. There's a website called usehooks.com, where it kind of just has like a bunch of really helpful hooks that you can just copy and paste into your code. Might need to change some of it to be TypeScript instead of JavaScript, but we'll see. And do they have a use local? Right, use local storage. This hook here. And you can set an initial value. Yeah, this looks good. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy it all. Take it to my code, and I'm going to have, maybe in the common, I'll make a folder called hooks. And then I'll make a new folder called use local storage hook. I'm going to make it a TypeScript, and I'm going to paste you out, and then I'll just export default here. This hasn't been imported, which is why it's red. We'll keep the comments. We'll keep the comments in case anybody wants to see how this is working. I'm not sure why like this is red. Okay, so key is going to be a string, and initial value is also going to be a string, because I'm pretty sure local storage can only store strings, right? Unless it can store objects now. I don't know. Whoa! Need to change back to you. I've been on the been on the tablet for so long. Right. Let me go back over what I did because I'm an idiot. I haven't been drinking too much either. I don't even know why. So basically, I went to this usehooks.com, found that they do a local storage hook, and looked at it for a few seconds, and just sort of liked it. It's gonna work fine, so I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna copy it, and that's exactly what I did. It's now here. It's now in this. We have a function which basically is setting a state, and then it's checking if this item already exists. If it does, then we're gonna JSON.parse it. So I'm guessing we're gonna do a JSON.stringify down here. Yep. But if it doesn't exist, then we're gonna basically set it to this initial value, which is fine. But it's not actually setting the value in this. Let's see. So we set the value, and then this value can also be a string. So I'm just typing it out because this is a JavaScript function in TypeScript. So and then the value to store is an instant of a function, which is the value, which is basically if it's equal to this use state object, then it's going to basically set the state to this, or it will basically say value, and then it will say set stored value here, which is this. Okay, that makes sense. And then basically saves to local storage, the JSON.stringify, ready for us to pass it here. So I'm guessing that you still need to call this set stored value. Let's set value here on sort of load anyway. But yeah, let's see. I don't think this should be. Is it red? Okay. It's kind of hard because it's like I don't know whether it's basically shouting at me because it hasn't caught up that this isn't an any object, that this can be a string. It is. Type any, an object type or type parameter. Left-handed side of instant of expression must be type any. Okay, so basically this needs to be type any. And I'm guessing because this can be a function as well as a string. This makes sense. Okay, cool. So yeah, this should work. Sorry, it just took me a while to kind of read over all of this stuff. I did think that my cat came in here, but I don't know. If she does, then I'll hold her up to the camera so you can see her. But now that we have this is still red. This definitely exists. It exists. Otherwise it wouldn't let me do that. Yay. Oh. Okay, so this is the error that I was talking about when I was first getting it, I think, which is basically this onClick event is expected to get this sort of prop in here, which is the prop that's in here, but at the moment we're just having nothing. Now we could type it out to be in here, but I think what's actually easier is going back to sort of type equals type and this stuff, because this allows us to do this onClick and take in this function, but we're just not going to pass anything through the parameter, which means that we can do this and it should be typed fine. Another cool thing of this is that we could have an on-click function or sort of on-press function in here, which automatically sets the prevent default, so that when we run this, we don't have to do that anywhere else. But as I said, with the type, we might want it to submit a form and stuff, so we won't do that. I'm guessing that this error is going to go away as well. I hope. It's just VS Code gets a bit slow when my computer's slow, and it doesn't sort of work out these types very well. So like this still thinks that it's on click, but it's type. So I'm just hoping that that's going to go away. So now that we have this use local storage hook, we're going to find something which gives me a random string generator in JavaScript, which you can see I've looked at before. And I think I looked at this one. Had a lot of downloads. You can do random string.generate, and it generates a short string. Last published 4 years ago. Wonder if they have any TypeScript support. So I'm just gonna sort of go to the issues and I'm just gonna search TypeScript, see if anyone's mentioned it. They haven't, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but we'll give it a go and we'll see. And if not, we can just sort of type it anyway. Not too much of an issue. So let's add this package. In fact, we could just do it over here. Add random string. So let's go to this whisper. In fact, let's go to this index. Right on this index, we're going to say, first of all, we want to have this use local storage stuff. So we need to have const equals use local storage, which we can import. And then this is the key. So we'll call it user code. I don't know if that's a good key to use, but we should probably store this in a constant. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to, in this common folder, I'm going to make a constants.js. It's still default. It's still default to say JS instead of TS. And then we're going to export const. We'll call this local user local storage key. Long name, I know, but I feel like that's pretty descriptive. And we'll even just call it the same thing as it's called. So this should be fine. Don't know why this is erroring. Like ESLint, man, it's kind of fucking up my day. But now instead of this, it'll be much easier if I do this. Storage key, and then basically anytime we want to do that, we can just put it in here. I think we can set an initial value. I don't know if it's required. I don't know if it's required. I'm gonna say it's not required. It's required. Great. So basically what I thought here is that we could just set it to be the random string, but I'm pretty sure while reading that function, you had to still run this sort of step value to actually set it in local storage itself. So having an initial value doesn't really do much apart from it doesn't cause the this to ever be empty when it's sort of rendering and loading into local storage for the first time. So let's see if we can import that random string from random string. Now this might error because it might not be typed, which is fine. Const user code equals random string dot generate, like this. And yep, this is exactly what I was expecting. And we may be lucky and we may be able to do yarn add to the dev dependencies types / random string, and it may exist and someone may have typed it out already for us, which looks like it could be the case, which is great. So we don't have to do that ourselves. which means this error should go away. Okay, so what's the project? Still the personal site? No, it's not the personal site. Basically, the idea is that we're going to have sort of these. Let's go back to design. So it's sort of like the same style as my personal site, but it's just kind of like a little fun little thing where you get to type in a whisper, and then when you hit publish, it would be like, oh, publish to this URL. And then when people come to it, it will last for 60 seconds. For those 60 seconds, it's going to be slowly fading out to 0 opacity. And then basically what's going to happen is it's going to just go away. It's just going to be a whisper. I did have another idea where you could sort of re-whisper, and then if you sort of catch it before it runs out, that you could change the whisper so that the next person who comes on will see your whisper and not, but people won't know who did what whisper. It's just kind of like a fun little thing that you can just sort of make a whisper. The first person that views it will start the countdown for 60 seconds. After 60 seconds, it will no longer exist. But who knows? I did make a little walkthrough of kind of like how it's going to work over here on my iPad with all of this stuff. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different idea. A little bit cool. The URL is whisper.li. It's in the description, and so is the GitHub repo. Although I haven't committed anything yet, probably should. But I'm thinking like this is getting to the end of this stream now. I just want to kind of store this random string into local storage so that when we refresh, we get the same sort of string. And then throughout this whole stream, we've only got to this first step. Which seems crazy, right? But all this stuff won't actually be too hard because Redis luckily is pretty easy to work with, and Next.js is even easier to work with. So their API stuff and serverless functions are just so easy to do that like that stuff's going to be the fast stuff. Is laying it out and stuff, which is going to be annoyingly hard. So now this user code should get generated. I'm just going to console log it. Do you know any good reference to use free.js in React? I think there's a package for it now. I mean, you could just import free.js directly into, because like React is JavaScript at the end of the day. I would personally probably just import free.js, make a component which uses it, and then import that component. But I would be surprised if there wasn't like a React library for it, right? Need to not forget to change this screen. So yeah, I'd be surprised if it doesn't exist. D3 is also a really good animation library which works with SVG paths and stuff, and you can do some cool graphs and fun stuff like that. So maybe try out that if you're struggling with that. So now that we're console logging this user code, we should over here have some sort of code logging, right? This is what we expect. Okay, so this, where did it go? So this is the code that we want. We don't want it to be that long, because you can imagine if that was stuck on the end of a URL, that would be ugly as hell, right? And I'm pretty sure, if I read this correctly, that you could just generate a specific string. And yes, this does mean that people could technically have the same user code. I'm not too worried about it. Like, the worst case scenario is those two people won't be able to whisper at the same time, but the likelihood is so slim that those two will have the same user code, and not only that, but will be whispering at the same time. Not gonna worry about it. All of these little projects I do, just super quick hacks, so don't expect the best. Okay, so this code is a lot shorter, a lot nicer. I'm going to just give it a go, and I'm just going to say, this gives me the value, right? And where did that go? This gives me the name and the set name. Okay, so it returns an array. So this will be the code, set code, basically is what we're doing here. And then if we pass this as in the initial value, And then let's do console.log code. Now basically what should happen, I mean, for example, if we commented that out and we just console log this area, then every time we refresh, this code is going to change each time. It's going to change. So if we refresh again, it's going to be a different code. And then if we refresh again, it's going to be a different code, so on, because it's not storing anywhere, right? It's not storing in this local storage, this magical storage place. So what I'm hoping to do with this here is I'm hoping that this is enough to store it into local storage by setting its initial value here. I'm pretty sure that it's not. And we're going to have to do like a use effect, and then when the component runs, we're going to have to store it in local storage that way so that it's like persisted, right? But just want to see. So let's just refresh. It may be the case that this function is called during that initial value, but I don't think it's the case, right? The last one began with like a ZA, and this one begins with like 05SW, so that's not the case. So we actually need to explicitly set this code here. So for that, we'll just do a use effect, which is basically setting side effects. And then the side effects run this function, and then basically what we want the side effects to be will be in this array. If we leave it empty, this will run once when the component is mounted. If we fill this stuff up, so if we put user code here, this function will run every time this user code variable is changed, but we only want it to run once when the component is mounted, so we leave the array empty. So here we're going to explicitly say set the code to be user code, right? It just kind of makes me feel like there's no point in this being initial value, and I get it. It means that this is never null. So if we ever want to use it, it's never null. Which makes sense, but so basically if we then console.log code, what's happening here is we're basically generating user code. We're getting the user code as the initial value, but here we set it to local storage so that it persists, which means that the next time you get this code by using local storage, it's going to check if this has been set and if it exists, and if it does, instead of returning this initial value, which will be something different, by the way, it'll be something completely different when you refresh. Instead of returning this, it's going to return the previous storage sort of persisted value, which is going to be the first one that we got, which means that we can be fairly sure, unless they sort of clear out their local storage manually or go to another website browser and stuff, that this is going to be consistent. And we don't really care too much. We only care basically when they basically start whispering, because when they view their own whisper, we don't want the timer to start counting down past 60 seconds already, because no one else has had a chance to view it. We want it so when the next viewer that's not them comes, it will start counting down the 60 seconds. So let's see. Let's console log this code. Let's see if it's now the same. And I hope it is. But if not, then it's kind of annoying. Because it's not, right? It's not. This should be the same. But it's not. It's definitely not the same each time. So I'm going to just reread this function. So we have a function which gets a key and the initial value. Right. We then have stored value as set value. So we return the stored value. And that's going to be the first item that we return, which is this code. And the stored value is a use state, which is a function which gets the local storage get item by the key. And then if the item exists, then we'll do the JSON.parse on the item and return that. Or we'll return the initial value. And then the set value is, and the value is any. Right. I mean, I'm kind of thinking of probably a better way to do this. And I'm just gonna start typing it out. Maybe it'll be better, maybe it won't be better, But my idea of this is basically getting the same stuff with initial value and stuff, but we're basically using this use effect inside this hook. And then basically what we can do here is we can do the same thing here, which we can check if this item exists here. And then we can say if item is equal to null, then it doesn't exist. Then we're going to store the item straight away by just doing this right here. All right. Now we know that this is going to be a string, so we don't need to stringify it here. So boom. Cool. So then if it does already exist, we obviously don't need to set this initial value. So what's this set item complaining at? This initial value cannot find name value to oh, it's still errored from the previous what it was at previously for some reason. Okay, so basically when we call this, it's going to load for the first time. It's going to look for the key. If it doesn't exist, then it's going to set the item. So we're going to have to use a state. So we'll say const local storage const item set item is equal to use state. And then this is going to be a string. And I'm pretty sure this could automatically be typed from what we put in here, but this is fine. Now, what we're going to do is we're then going to say this is default equal to the initial value, right? Then we can say if value is equal to null, then this. Else, we can say if the value does not equal to null, then this item is obviously what we want this state to be. So we can do set item and then this item, which is fine. Okay, so now we need to worry about this set item stuff, which we can have a function which is like set local storage item, like this, and then this is going to get the value, which will be a string and not this weird any syntax that they do. And then basically what we want this to do is we basically just want it to automatically set the item, which is setting the state, to this value which we're passing into this function. But not only that, we also want it to set the local storage item to the key that we're passing into the use storage, the value of this function. So this is basically going to update this state for us and also update the local storage, so that when we next do the use effect, it's going to pull from this, it's going to update the state, and then we'll collect this instead. Which I think this makes a little bit more sense than everything they were doing down here. And then that will allow us to do it. Basically do, instead of returning stored value, we return item here, which is equal to this state. And then basically instead of returning set value, we'll return this set local storage function to be able to set it and set the state as well as the local storage. Right. I think that would probably work a little bit better. Everything's a bit grayed out because it's not sure where I'm using them, because ESLint is again catching up with me. But now I'm pretty sure that we don't need to do this. And we don't need to do this, right? Because we don't need to set that on load, because that's already handled for us. So now we're getting the code, and we're saying it as the initial value. If that doesn't exist, it's going to set that for us. Then it's going to return that code. If it does exist, then it's going to return the code that was already set. Fingers crossed, because like, it didn't seem that hard. I don't know why I just kind of expected it to be harder than it is. So yeah, this looks like, I mean, it's getting an initial value first of something that's different, but this WW something is always sort of being the same as far as I can tell. But this first value is what's different. So in that case, what I think I would do, and that's basically because, right, we're setting this to be this initial string. So it obviously hasn't collected it from local storage and set the state before updating it and giving it back to us. So I might set this to be null. And that would mean that this could also be null. Just so that we have nothing and then it updates and then we have something. Because otherwise if we have something, then it updates, we have something else. It's like we don't know which one to use. So this one just makes it clear that when it's null, we just ignore it, or we just like won't render a component or something like that. And then when it exists, we can expect that that is what we want it to be. So it looks like basically from here, it looks like, considering it's wrapped in these strings, that we do need to do some sort of JSON.parse around this. So we can do JSON.parse, which will take those sort of quotation marks out from the string, which doing this kind of makes me think that we should do JSON.stringify just to kind of make sure that it's definitely going to be a string that's going in here. Right. So yeah, let's do this. This is now echoing this, and then we refresh. It should be null and then the correct one that we want, right? So null and then this is going to be stored and persisted so that it doesn't update every time, which is what it was doing before. And it's a little bit simpler, right? We don't have to sort of do this use effect, which then sets it again. We can just kind of assume that this initial state here is going to set it if it doesn't exist, and then it's fine. But now that we have this code, we can use this sort of line on any of our components, and it will just be equal to this WWTN. So for example, if we took this out of here, we'll keep it in because obviously if it didn't exist, it would have to still store it. But in that case, we can just do this because we don't need to use that code on this page. We basically just want to say when this page loads, we'll store it, but we don't do anything with it. We also don't need this anymore. And then say if we want to use this in the Whisper component, we can just go here and we can just do like use local storage hook, and then we'll call it, what do we call it? User local storage key, cool. And then we could get the code from here, so const code equals this, and then we can even overwrite it if we want with that second item or set item. We could overwrite that, and that will update the state and update the local storage. But so now if we console.log this code, then basically this is a different component altogether. It needs this initial thing. I'm going to see if I can change that so that this is not required. And then if item is null, then we'll say, yeah, if item is null and we have an initial value, then we want to set that to be the initial value. So we could, instead of just copying and pasting this here, if we change this JSON.stringify, because I realized that we're not doing it here either, then we can just call this function instead of calling this again. So we can just do this with the initial value here. We could set the default of this to be null, just so that this is gonna basically fail, because we could say and initial value does not equal null. Then we do this, and then we can just say else if item, then we'll just give back the item, and then this else condition will basically be if the item doesn't exist, we didn't pass an initial value, that's basically it. We didn't pass initial item, so I guess we would just, we don't do anything, right? We'll just keep this at null. This is fine. This is erroring. Null is not assignable type string, so we basically just need to say this could be a string or null, and then this should go away eventually. So now I think that is going to allow us to not need to pass in this initial value, because we can basically say that if it's already done here, which we know because we did it, we coded it, and this is definitely going to load before this Whisper component because this is the parent of the Whisper component. Let's just see. I cannot have a question mark and an initializer. So if we remove this, then I think this will still be optional, which is fine. This is no longer erroring. So now we're still getting this correct code coming through, but it's coming from a different component altogether. So it kind of shows that this is like a persisted state. This hasn't changed at all since we played with all of this stuff, and we're just getting the code, and then we're setting it on the index. Now the reason why we're getting this log of null here is basically because when we first load this Whisper component and we're console logging this code, we're not passing in an initial value. It doesn't know, like this state is set to null by default, right? So it's going to initiate, it's going to set the state to null, and then it's going to run this. This is what going to set this value, and then it's going to update this state. And then that state will be reflected here, which is why we're getting the null and then this. This isn't too bad because we can basically just like, for example, if we wanted this button to be disabled and active, we could just go to this button component here and we can just say, what's this? Okay, so string is not assignable to type button, submit, or undefined. So we can basically just copy this and change the type to this, right? This should get rid of this. This basically just means that we can only use these values for this, which should get rid of this error. But anyway, if we add like a disabled boolean, so disabled, and then it's a boolean, then we can have disabled in here, disabled, and then here we can have disabled, disabled. And now that we're doing two things with the same thing, even though this is slightly different, I'm gonna go back to this, disabled type, just so that we don't have to repeat ourselves too much there. So now that this button is going to disable, what's the CSS property for disabled CSS property? It's just colon disabled. So basically why I'm doing that is I just want some sort of visual thing to happen to the button so we know when it's being disabled or not. And we'll just change the background color to red for now. Cool. This is missing the prop disabled. We should probably make this actually an optional one, because obviously some buttons will just never be disabled, but we're going to then have this disabled is equal to, it's disabled if the code is equal to null. So this is going to be disabled when we first load, and it's going to enable when we have that local storage in our state and ready to use. See how it kind of flashed red then? That red state is when it's disabled and it can't be used. But then anytime after that, it's fine. So really, that's kind of like a really small second that they're probably going to take longer to type it. They're never going to really notice that. So I probably won't disable it. Or maybe I will, but I just won't have any visual effects there. Maybe I'll just have the cursor change to the not allowed. Who knows? But I think I'm going to end this stream here. Git add, git commit message added, stream one content. There we go. So now that I've pushed this up, this should now go onto basically this whisper.li URL, and this will be updated after a little while to be that new content here. Obviously nothing works. It's just the styles. We can type it, and I mean we can press publish, but it's not going to do anything. This links to the video that you're watching now, and this links to my Twitter. So if you want to go follow me on there, that'd be cool. So before I head off, let's just quickly explain that although we did a lot in this video and it went on for ages, and I had some issues at the start, which was like I didn't know when people were watching and things like that, we only got this done. and it seems like we didn't get a lot done, but we set up the foundations for a lot of things, right? Now that we have this, storing this right string in our Redis store is only going to be a very, very small endpoint to the serverless function, which is then going to connect to Redis. We're probably going to do a really simple sort of service for Redis, which is going to have like writing or like set, store, like same thing, removing and getting from the Redis store. And then we're basically just going to add these strings in with the unique sort of string that we just created with this random string. And we're going to set that to be the key, and then we're going to set the string of the whisper to be the result of that, and then we can store all of the keys that we have into a set in Redis. So we can pick a random one, and we can go to like /random, we can just collect a random whisper, or we can go to / and then the specific sort of random string that's generated for the user to get that user's whisper. Then all of the stuff, which is like setting the expires at, is not too hard because we just have to check if the expires at even exists on the thing that we're collecting from Redis. If not, we'll just make it exist. And then we'll basically recollect it so that it then exists in our object. And it will basically just be a timestamp set to 60 seconds in the future. We can then basically make a set interval which checks every second how close we're getting to that, which I was obviously just going to count down 60 seconds because it's 6 seconds in the future. We're checking it every 60 seconds. We're then going to do a calculation which is like 60 divided by 100 times 100, basically just to get the percentage of like how opacity the text should be. So basically over the 60 seconds the text is going to get less and less and less opacity, and then it's it. That's done. It's done. So we should probably get all of that done in the next stream. Then the next stuff I did, which was like a little idea, which is how we could loop it back around, is if you've watched it fade out and maybe like another time will come down of 60 seconds, which during that 60 seconds will give you the chance to be able to re-whisper. I don't know. Which means that basically people that are coming back to that URL will see your whisper instead of the person's original whisper. Which is kind of fun because it's kind of messing with the game, and I don't know how I feel about that side of things. Basically, I don't want to happen is basically I post a link on Twitter of my whisper, someone sees it, watches it for 60 seconds, and then changes it to something like really horrible or rude, and then all of my followers think that I whispered this thing. So that's kind of the bad thing that could happen, or is that the fun thing that could happen? I don't know, I haven't decided yet, but I'm going to head off because it's been a fun stream. I'll be back on Sunday. I'm going to finish this off. Then we can speak about sort of like next steps for it, if there are going to be. If you have any suggestions on sort of stuff, let's change to this. If you have any suggestions on stuff that you want to see, at the moment I'm just sort of like picking ideas out of my head and they're not really polished, and I'm not going that into detail with all of the optimization things that I could be doing or all of the advanced things that I could be showing you, because I want to keep it short. I say short, these are like 2-3 hours long, but like kind of like short projects which I can do on the weekend and things like that. So if you guys have something or stuck with something that I could explain in the start of a video or something like that, then I'm more than happy to just leave your comment below, and I'll go check them out. I am working with a kind of idea which is kind of a bit more long term, which will kind of include all of you guys watching now and sort of like the future as contributors to an open source project, which we could all sort of live stream to. Like I imagine sort of like I'm live streaming and I'm contributing to it, and then someone else would be live streaming contributing to it, and then people can obviously shout out all of the people and all of the contributors that are currently live and all of that stuff, and kind of create like a little community around this project, which is the main thing is that it will be made for developers by developers, and those developers will be us, and I think that'd be fun. But I need to iron out a few things, so that's why I'm kind of doing these fun little projects just to kind of get used to streaming, get sort of like comfortable with streaming, get all my settings right, because I still had to change my settings 1,000 times to kind of get a good stream, and I'll still be playing with that and sort of seeing what I can do to improve that. But yeah, for now, thank you guys for watching. You've been great as always. Didn't really drink much, did a lot more talking than drinking. But don't forget to subscribe, and I'll be live again on Sunday, where we'll come back to this, we'll finish this off, and let's just take a look if the website has been updated, which it has, so you guys can go and check that out. Good thing I just noticed though is that this red is staying disabled until I probably refresh, which is then it's gonna update. So that's the first thing we're gonna fix in the next stream. Alright, so again, thanks for watching, subscribe, all of that crap. It's been really fun, so thank you and goodbye.